Welcome to the solution video for my 2019 exchange puzzle. For 2019 I produced these leaf prints. I've reproduced every single vein and detail of a naturally occurring leaf, but I've somehow managed to print it into a solid piece of stainless steel. Pretty hard stuff. So this video explains how it was done. So spoiler alert, if you don't want to know how it's done, look away now. So I'm going to tell you how I managed to transfer every single little detail from a natural leaf into a steel plate. Now, I managed to get every detail, including every little vein that's in the leaf, every little defect, every detail to transfer to the plate. Now, the way I do this is using some quite specialist materials. Obviously stainless steel, some mild steel, more mild steel over here, and some bits of wood. But there was one key material that I couldn't get last year, because I originally wanted to do this for the 2018 Puzzle Exchange. But there was one key material, as I said, I couldn't get in time. So, now that I've got the material, I can make them ready for 2019. Now this material is this rather nice looking modelling clay. As you can see, lovely pink colour, and it's nice and squishy, and you can shape it into whatever shape you want. However, that is not modelling clay. It normally comes as much larger blocks like this, and if I flip this over you'll see exactly what it is. This is a 2.5 kilo block of Semtex 1A high explosive. It's a PETN based plastic explosive made at the Semtex factory in the Czech Republic, explosive factory. So I bought myself 25 kilos of this stuff. Don't need quite that much for doing my leaf prints, but I do have other uses. Since I'm a chartered explosives engineer, I've got plenty of other things I can do with this stuff. So the first thing I've got to do is to turn this block of plastic explosive into a sheet of explosive so that I can lay it over the top of my leaves. Now this is going to take some doing, because rolling this down to a uniform 2mm thickness is quite difficult. So I will show you how I get on and do that, and then I'll move on to how I arrange this in order to do a whole heap of leaf prints ready for the Puzzle Exchange. Right, so I'm about to prepare this piece of Semtex 1A. Now it's a plastic explosive which is designed to stick to things, so that when you're doing demolition work and things you can stick it on the side of a bridge or something, set it all up and fire it, and it will transfer the shocks directly into the metal and do the damage that you want. Now I don't particularly want it to stick to everything inside because it's a bugger to use. I need to roll it out just to 2mm thick, which is going to be quite difficult. So I'm going to use a rolling pin, but I'm going to sandwich it between two sheets of plastic so that it doesn't stick to my rolling pin, so I can roll it out and get it into a nice large sheet. Now to get the right thickness, I'm going to put a 2mm thick batten that I've cut each side of it, and then roll across the top of that batten, or those battens, which should then squish this down to the correct size. At least that's a theory, so let's give it a try. I can move these in for starters for the first few goes, and we'll see where we get. So start rolling. Now you see it's starting to get there, still far too thick in the middle there. I've still got a lot more work, but I think I'll do that in time lapse, because otherwise it's going to be very boring for you. Now then, it's taken me several hours to roll out this Semtex 1A, and it's far too thick. It's about 3 times as thick as I actually want it to be. So what I've done, I've now got my sheet metal bender, given it a good clean, made sure there's no rust or muck on it that's going to be a problem and get into the explosive. Plus I'm going to sandwich the explosive between 2 sheets of plastic, just to make sure there's no actual direct metal contact with it. And I'm going to run it through these rollers to try and reduce it down, and we'll see how we go. So having rolled the explosives out, what I need to do is to effectively sandwich a leaf between a piece of explosive and a steel plate. But to get to the most out of my explosive, I'm going to make it a double sandwich. So I'm going to have a piece of steel, my leaf, piece of explosive, another leaf up the other way, another piece of steel, and then another base piece of steel on top of that. Reason for that is I'll get 2 leaf prints for the same amount of explosive, and the explosive is quite expensive stuff, so I don't want to waste it. Now, when a shockwave hits a piece of steel, the shockwave is transferred into the actual steel. As it travels through the steel, it will reflect off of any free faces, like the end here. That will reflect back in, putting the steel into tension, and that will then peel a thin piece off of the edge here, making a jagged razor sharp edge. As I'm going to hand these out to people, I don't want that, so I need to do something about it. So what I'm going to do is to arrange 4 of these next to each other, like that, and then 4 down that way. But I'm going to edge them with this steel bar here that I've ground the edge off of, so it's nice and flat. Butt it up like so. And the idea is that as the explosive shockwave travels through these pieces of steel, the shockwave will transfer into this piece, which I don't care about, ensuring that this piece survives or is less likely to have the fractured edge on that I'm bothered about. So it should transfer through into this and pop this bit off. This way will be damaged, but that doesn't bother me because that's not the piece I want. I want these nice shiny pieces left afterwards. Now the underside of the plate also gets affected because the massive shockwave that hits it wants to deform the plate. If I were to put this against any sort of rough old piece of thick steel, it would take on all the features of that and it would be undulating and nasty. That's why I've got this nice clean piece of mild steel underneath. So that acts as a nice polishing surface for the whole thing to butt up against. Right then, so here I have my sheet of plastic explosive. Go in there. We'll go right back to the edge. Go. Down there. Right, so this little gap here has been left because I'm going to put some more explosive in there, and that's where I'm going to attach the detonator to initiate the whole thing. So, back to the time lapse.
Ying tong 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 in a light pole. Keep that up, keep up, keep up. Ying tong ying tong ying tong ying tong in a light pole, lad. Ying tong ying tong ying tong in a light pole, in a light pole. Ying tong ying tong ying tong ying tong ying tong in a light pole. Ying tong ying tong ying tong in a light pole. Oh, ying tong ying tong ying tong ying tong ying tong in a light pole. Ying tong ying tong ying tong in a light pole, in a light pole.
Well, here I am on the firing range. I've got my plates all sorted out here. A little bit of Semtex 1A is spare, What I need to do first is to do a little test. I need to make sure that Semtex 1A can be set off by the detonator I'm planning to use. So I'm going to do a small leaf print, or this is the plan anyway, just a very rough one done by hand on this plate here. And I'm going to be doing it in the firing chamber, which is behind me here. Behind the metal, behind the concrete block you can see with the metal crane thing over it, there's a hillock covered in undergrowth and things. Inside there is the firing chamber. It's a load of car tyres that are stacked up and backfilled to make a rubberised chamber in which I can fire things, and hopefully fragmentation won't get out and hurt me or anybody else. So I shall do that in a minute and you'll get to see it. But first of all, I'm just going to prep this. Squish it on there, and then I shall be able to plonk the detonator in the top of it. Once I'm in the chamber and I've got it all connected up, I can then fire it off, and we'll test to see if it works. If that functions correctly, then I shall be able to move on to my big and proper plates. And this is what I'm going to fire off. I need to connect my detonator to my firing leads and then insert it into the explosive. But I connect it to the firing leads first, but put the detonator in a safe place so that if there's some stray currents to set off the detonator itself goes off but doesn't hurt me. I'm going to drop it down that little rabbit hole in the corner there, and then I'm going to connect it to the end of my firing cable here. So keep everything shorted out as long as possible. Make sure everything is neutral and equalised. And then twist that bit on there. Close it all again. Twist the other end on there. Keep the two ends apart so they don't short out. And now I can insert the detonator into the actual charge. So that should be just fine. Right then, well, I'm all set to do the first firing. I could of course use a nice capacitor discharge system like this lovely military piece of equipment here for firing my charges, where I've got up to 4 channels and I could fire it off like that. But that's not a lot of fun, so I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to use this alternative device, a proper working 1800s plunger box, which is a lovely piece of equipment. Now I'll use this to fire off my charge because it's a lot more fun. Stand by! Firing! 3, 2, 1! And yep, there is a bent piece of metal. Yep, so that shows that the Semtex definitely functioned correctly, but because it wasn't between plates as I'm planning for the main shots, the leaf print, even though it's there, it's not exactly nice and flat and capable of being put on somebody's coffee table, which is what I'm aiming for with my exchange puzzles. So we'll have to do something slightly different.
Ying tong, ying tong, ying tong, ying tong, ying tong, little lad, where's he going, lad? Ying tong, ying tong, ying tong, little lad, let out!
Stand by for firing! Firing now! Now that could really ruin your day. So, a whole heap of leaf prints there, which is great. I've already found a 9 attached to the top piece that flew quite a distance. Found one a little way away, but I just lifted it up. So I've got a few leaf prints attached to it. That's from an earlier shot, not quite sure which one. And this, I think, is from the latest shot. See? pinned in the ground, and there's all the leaf prints on the back of it. Well, there's only 13 that I can't find, and here's the rest of them. Many leaf prints. A good day's work. I've now got a bit of cleaning up to do to try and flatten these out a little bit and polish them up, and they should come up a treat. After my 4 fire rings, I ended up with about 40 to 50 plates that were free and didn't require much work. There were another 20 plates that were partly welded onto the metal bases that I was using, the mild steel cover plates, and with a bit of work, a bit of chiselling and hammering, I was able to get those off. So I ended up with around about 70 plates that were ready for use. I've now got about 40 that are still welded to the base metal and welded good and solid, so that's going to take a lot more work to get those off. Right, this is one of the almost finished leaf prints, so the exposer's work's been done. Now what I've got to do is just to clean all the muck off the surface. I'm going to use my rotary wire brush here just to clean that a lot off. Well, there we have it, one nice shiny leaf print. Now, just got to clean off the edges just to round them off so there's no sharp corners and things on it. But once I've done that, they're pretty much ready for packaging to take to Japan. However, I am going to take some precautions by putting these in my dishwasher and washing them many times, just to make sure there's no explosive residues left on them before I package them up ready to take them to Japan, because I really don't want the officials getting overexcited if their explosive detecting machines go ping as I walk past. So with that precaution taken, I should be able to get these over to Japan no problem and take part in the puzzle exchange.